Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for this 8th video of our PowerShell Fundamentals series. In this video, we're going to take a look at item properties inside PowerShell. I want to touch on something we refer to as the object-oriented nature of the PowerShell language. You may have heard that in other programming endeavors, object-oriented programming. PowerShell adopts a lot of similarities in there in how it handles all the elements within it. It treats everything like an object. Those objects have properties and have methods, and all the things we can do to those things are available to us in PowerShell. And I want to take a look at how we can find what properties are available to us within PowerShell using a command called Get-Member. We're going to navigate using the skills we picked up in the last video to find different items. We're going to figure out what those items properties are, and we're going to see how we can manipulate them using a couple of the basic PowerShell commandlets, Get-ItemProperty and Set-ItemProperty, and we'll do some examples of that. So I'm going to start off as I always do in my ISE environment. And now that we're comfortable with PowerShell providers and PowerShell drives, I know that I can go out and source out objects. And in our last video, when I was digging up my registry, I should spell it right. There we go. I was looking under my HKey current user, and we saw that we can navigate to this in PowerShell. We saw a series of folders and items within those folders, and all of those items had values that we can possibly adjust. We found very easily one in the control panel under our mouse items. So I want to be able to now sort of access this and see how I can adjust this using PowerShell. Okay, so I'm going to start off with recognizing that I have a PS provider. And that PS provider is for my registry, and I can access it via two PS drives. One is HKLM, my local machine, and one is my current user. So this particular thing I'm looking for is under my current user, which is going to allow me to change directory to my HKCU drive and then navigate to that particular folder that contains the item that I'm looking for. So we did this last video. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go dir. There's all my environment folders, and I'm going to pop over to the control panel. Now inside that control panel again, I can see a series of items. Those items, these objects, are matching what I see in my registry editor. And there's that one that I was looking for right there. This is all my mouse options here under the mouse folder. Okay, now what we didn't do was take a good look at what is changeable about this. This item has a value. It has properties. I can manipulate these properties, and I can ask PowerShell to tell me what the properties of those items are using a command called Get-ItemProperty. Now again, I encourage you to go take a look at the help for Get-ItemProperty. It's going to give you all sorts of examples of how you can use it, what its syntax looks like, what the parameters come with it are, but it's fairly intuitive, as you can imagine many of these are. I'm going to hit the path button, which says, okay, well, I'm looking for something that's in my mouse directory, and the name of that, let's pick one of these here from the top. How about I take the I don't know, hover width, sure, hover time, one of those, hover height, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go, the name of the thing I'm looking for is the mouse hover time is I'm going to select. And I'm just going to hit enter and see what it tells me. So PowerShell has returned information about the item's properties. Now I'm using the word item, but that is only because it fits the syntax of the actual command that I'm using. More specifically, this is a Microsoft object, and we will get into what the subtle difference is there, because this object here has properties, and one of those properties is a value, and that value is changeable if I wanted to. And it literally is as simple as me, after finding the item property, I can use a different command to set the item property to be something different. And so maybe I wanted to take the value of this to make it something different. Now, this requires a bit of homework because honestly, I don't know what that 400 means. Do I have to go higher or lower to reduce or increase my hover time? I don't know. I'd have to figure out what that value actually does. I don't have to go read about it. Let's pick something a little less dangerous and a little bit easier to verify. So I'm going to go back to let's go back to my file directory here. And I'm going to go back to my C drive. And let's navigate back to my desktop. I'm going to use my set location this time just to follow my PowerShell parameters. And I'm going to go to the path that is my my desktop, because I've got a ton there. Now remember, in my last video we saw how we could build a PowerShell drive. Very shortly I'm going to show you how to build a PowerShell profile script that actually sets all this stuff up for us so we don't have to keep doing this. But I'm trying to get to my desktop, and I am there. I'm going to do a quick directory and see there's a whole bunch of stuff to play with. Now these files are different items than I saw in the last thing I was looking at there in the registry, because they're different types of items. This is the file system provider as opposed to the registry provider, but still I'm dealing with items / objects inside this particular environment. All of these objects have properties. Let's pick one that I can't really get into trouble with. I'm going to go back to my Get-ItemProperty commandlet, and I'm going to hit the path. Of course, it's in my current directory, so that means it's dot and a backslash. And let's grab services. Let's grab the text file here. Okay, I'd like to know, PowerShell, what properties do I have to work with respect to the services.txt file, aka item, aka object. And I hit enter, and PowerShell says, oh, well, you've got 3 modes here, or you got 3 items here. You have you have the mode property, you've got the last write time, you've got the length, and you got the name. How do you like me now? I go, well, that seems like I'm missing stuff. I'm thinking there's more to it. I know there's not only just a last write time, but there's a create time. There's different things with this. There's more properties here. PowerShell here in this case has pre-formatted the output, trying to guess what I'm looking for, and in this case, not quite what I'm after. Good try, points for effort, PowerShell. Thanks for showing up to play, but I need more information. Well, PowerShell actually has a special commandlet that is specifically designed to tell me what I have to work with. And it is called Get-Member. And what it does is it literally shows me all the unique aspects and properties unique to that object. All I have to do to find it is I have to take the property that I'm looking for, and I just have to pipe that information into Get-Member. Let's see what happens. So now when I pipe this over, remember what I've done in this pipe, everybody, is instead of taking the property and put it on my screen in its pre-formatted way, I've asked it to simply send it to Get-Member, who has then sent me all this big long list. It's extracted the properties I have to work with, and it has put it on the console in front of me. Now, notice I'm not seeing the values, I'm not seeing any of the particulars, but what I'm seeing is a series of what we call methods. These are things that I can do to the object. These are things that I can apply to it, like I can delete it, it's able to be copied to, it can be created, it can be moved, it can be open. I can do all sorts of things with it. It also has a series of properties that I can also modify as well. There's a creation time, its directory name, its extension, its full name. Oh, is read only. Let's play with that one. That's easy to work with. So I'm going to now go take a look at where I would find that if I were to, let's go services.txt, let's right click, go to the properties and verify its status. There's my attribute right there. Okay, so right now it is not read only. If I wanted it to be, I would have to click on that and have the checkbox, put it applied, and I would obviously have to clear it if it were and I didn't want it to be read only. But I want to do this with PowerShell now. Let's go back, take a look at that particular property. I know it exists. That's the important thing. Get-Member told me the property exists, even though when I use the default response, it doesn't tell me that it's there. So what I want to do is I'm going to use let's use the set property. commandlet now. I'm going to take this item called services.txt, this object, and I want to change a few things. The property that I want to change is named isReadOnly. And I got that from looking at GetMember. I know that the name of the property, the name of the item property is isReadOnly. That's what I want to change. And the value of that property is Boolean, B-O-O-L. That's short for, it's a Boolean value, which means it's either true or false. And I remember all my Python training and all the other program languages I've talked about, the logical, if, or, true, false, that's all stemming from Boolean language. This is a Boolean parameter, a Boolean property, which means that it's either true that it's read-only or it's false that it's read-only. Currently, I know the value is false because it's not read-only. Well, let's change that value to the Boolean value of true. And let's spell it right. That's going to make it better. So now what I've said is take the item property of this, so set the item property of this item, take the property name that is called isReadOnly, and change its value or set its value to true, and let's see if it worked. Ah, look at that. So no error, that's good. Let's see if we can validate it. I'm going to right click on my properties, and yes, there we go. It is now read-only. So I've just successfully changed an object property using PowerShell. And let's go back and let's put it back. Let's go the other way. I'm going to go, I could change the value back to false. Okay, because that's the opposite of true. And so if I did this, what should happen is PowerShell should have successfully changed its property from true to false, and that's exactly what it did. Wonderful. Okay, so here's our takeaways, everybody. We're seeing a few things. Our goal with PowerShell is to manipulate and set and create and administer all the objects in the Windows world. That's what we're trying to do with PowerShell. Now we know that that PowerShell is simply seeing all these things as objects. It's using providers to present them in a fashion that we can navigate to them and find them. And in simple terms, I can find the item properties and then just figure out how to manipulate them. The tool we learned here is called GetMember, which told us about this, but you saw how easy it is once I figure out what the property is to actually make that adjustment. Let's review. So what we did here then is we took a look at how objects are being presented by PowerShell. It brings in the the PS providers and the PS drives. It lets us find them, but all of these objects have properties. Now, not all properties are the same because every type of object is unique and different. So we're going to learn that not all objects are created equal. However, we can figure out what properties are available to those objects using a commandlet called GetMember. Now, GetMember displays a list of those objects' properties. Some are methods, some are properties, and some were other types of properties that we didn't cover here. But those give us a fighting chance to actually start being able to adapt or apply things to them, or even just manipulate those properties. And it was fairly simple to use the Get-ItemProperty commandlet to figure out what the value of any particular item property was. And then we could use the Set-ItemProperty to make that adjustment, as you saw with a simple change on the read-only property for a text file. Now, I urge you now, you've got a very powerful set of tools at your fingertips. You want to be practicing in an environment where you can't do damage to your own computer. If you are working with anything in the registry or anything beyond a simple file structure. But you now have the ability to actually start seeing the power of PowerShell as we apply it to specific things in our network administration world. Hope that helped. We'll see you in the next video.